Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Sorry. 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 Try not to be late. It's very, very hard. Um, Give me a second here. I'm now posting the tweet. Okay. We're looking good. Got Captain Nero right here. Look at him. He's so cute. He's so cute. Meow, meow, meow. Oh. Yeah, no. Don't get agreed. He gets crazy for pets sometimes. And, doesn't want to stop begging for the pets. But Nero wants to be part of the show today. And I'm like, okay, Nero. You just gotta be on your best behavior. You can sit here. You have your little spot right there. And just be good. You can be good. You get your little spot. Okay, we're gonna start in a little bit here. Again, give it some time here, trickle in for some viewers who are doing for the live stream portion. So I just want to set some expectations here. So like I'm always doing here, we're just gonna be doing the sorry, let me scoot in, and let me fix you up just a smidgen bit. There we go. Give that video a little bit more of a fuller look. Oh, look at Nero's looking here. Sorry. Not COVID, sorry. But yeah, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of expectations of what we're going to be doing. And, yeah, I'm sorry I'm doing this. I'm trying to actually pull up the Twitch here so that way I can kind of minimize that one. And if you guys message me or, text me during the live stream, I can respond to you guys. It's a little bit easier for me to see that than my actual chat room at times because that chat room is hot garbage sometimes. Doesn't let me see certain aspects or see certain things. But I'm going to try my best. I'm like trying to move things around here. But yeah, so I just want to set a standard or expectations. So today, again, I'm going to be doing the nerdy reviews on Mobile Suit Gundam, a new translation. Alright, Zeta Gundam, a new translation. And then I'm going to be doing what's the Gundam difference? I like that little saying, like, what's the Gundam difference? But yeah, I'm going to be doing those not kind of simultaneously. So once I finish the nerdy review, I will be doing the what's the Gundam difference and going over that one. Not a whole. I feel like there's not a whole lot of content today, but there is actually quite a bit to go over. Trying to think of anything expectational wise. I keep forgetting things. I apologize for being late again. I'm not gonna make any excuses. I had errands again this weekend, and I misanticipated how long it was gonna take, especially having to go into do a drop off and couldn't find any parking. Anyways, long story short, yeah. So I started a little bit late. We're gonna try and get this one going. I got something to say about translation as a review, and then definitely want to get into what's the Gundam difference. I think this would be a fun little segment for you guys. It'd be really interesting. It took me a while to do it too. It's very difficult trying to get things poignantly down for that. Okay. We've waited a little bit long here, so... Oh, I do want to say, last expectation here is that I'm going to be kind of staging things as if this is going to be like a video on YouTube. So I do apologize if I kind of come off, stage. And you might have seen that in the previous live streams too. It's because I am cutting this up to be on YouTube. I mean, I do want to have it a little bit presentable, and that's why I kind of cut the... you'll notice that there's two different videos. There's between the live stream videos, and then there's the regular video itself. That way, if you want to watch it without all the fluff, you can watch the videos. And if you want to watch it with all the fun fluff that you missed out on the live stream, you can watch the live stream version. Of course, you won't be able to comment. I do really encourage you guys that I know it doesn't sound like I'm like responding, but I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat room. So as I'm also going over my points and talking about the, I point over here, it's not up yet, but talking about the series or the movie in this case. So please, if you do leave comments, I will respond to them. Just give me some time here as I reach out at the end of one of my points. I will try to reach out and talk about your comment and all that because I love responding to you guys. So please, be patient. If you have a comment out there, I will respond to it. We haven't gotten to the point where like my chat is flooded with comments and I can't even keep up. So I love to respond to comments and talk. I mean, the whole point of this is chatting while giving you a review at the same time. That said, too, just an early disclaimer here. But if you haven't already, follow me on my Twitch channel. Follow me on my Twitter account. That's when I make posts when I go live and so forth. And on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube at this point here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel so you get notifications. If you're kind of, share the video if you like enough, or at least share little bits and pieces of the review. Anyways. Oh, Nero's on the rise. I'm not going to have my double arms today because of Nero's here. But let's go ahead and begin. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Reviews. I'm your host, Zaku, and today I'm going to be reviewing Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, A New Translation. So just to preface this really fast, this is a compilation movie that came out on the 20th anniversary of Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam's original release. So this was made back, if Zeta Gundam was in 1985, 20 years later, it'd be 2005. That's when the movies came out. There are 3 compilation movies, each of them about hour and a half-ish, essentially. A little bit shorter than some of the other compilation movies that are out there. And it does some interesting things, such as introducing a lot of new animation, splicing with old footage, and trying to tell the story of Zeta Gundam. But what's the story? So I'm going to try to rehash, and I think you guys kind of notice Captain Nero here. He is the captain of this ship here. He wants all the attention. That's why you don't get my double hands. I like to express or talk with my hands a lot, but yeah. He's going to be here. He's got my arm kind of pinned down, so I'm going to work with that. Anyways, but yes, this is a compilation movies, 3 of them, of the Zeta Gundam series, which is a 50-episode series. So try to imagine cramming 50 episodes into hour-and-a-half-ish movies. Like, each one, like, the first one is called Heir to the Stars. The second one is called Lovers. And the third one is called, and I love the name, it's a ridiculously long name. It's Love is the Pulse of the Stars. Am I saying that one right? I think so, right? Let me try and pull that one up. I can't see it up on here exactly. Let me see if my notes really say this. Yeah. Love is the Pulse of the Stars. Ridiculously long name. I love ridiculously long names. Kind of reminds me of a Dragon Ball Z card from the 2000s, the Score game. Back in Saiyan Saga, you can look this up. You can like Google it. It was a card, and I commit this to memory because it's so ridiculous how long a name is for a card. But it's called Teaching the Unteachable Forces Observation. Yeah, I committed that to memory, and I thought that was the most ridiculous card name ever, by the name of it and then the length of the name. But I'm pretty sure there's other cards that are with longer names, but yeah, that one just kind of had me out there laughing. But yeah, Love is the Pulse of the Stars is the title of the 3rd movie. Each of those movies are about an hour and a half-ish. The first one being like an hour, 35 minutes or so. The second movie gets closer to an hour 40, like clocking in like 1 hour and 38 minutes. And then the last movie clocking in at around an hour 40. Or was it an hour 40? I can't remember. But it just gets increasingly a little bit longer, but not by a whole lot. Now, try to imagine trying to cram in 50 episodes into that time frame, and it's going to be a nightmare. Sometimes it works, like the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and sometimes it doesn't really work out, but then again, like the Afterglow of Xeon. So, I mean, it ranges. Anyways, let me kind of break down a little bit of the story here. If some of you are not familiar with it, or this is the first time you're watching this type of a review, you can also go double back into my Zeta Gundam review, which was the previous nerdy review here. But it's basically the same story here, and I'm just gonna paraphrase the entire plot line essentially. So the story of Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam: A New Translation basically takes place in Universal Century 0087. A young man by the name of Camille Bidon is involved in a ever-growing conflict between the oppressive Titans and the rebelling AUG. AUG being short for Anti-Earth Union Group. There you go. Let me see over here what I got. I apologize. I'm trying to go. I just finished this up last night, so I am just trying to get my bearings. I finished these movies back on, I want to say Wednesday, because I watched the movie every night. That's what I did. After work, I was able to watch a movie. It was very nice. And then that's where I was at. So I'm a little bit dazed about things, and trying to do the comparison thing was Anyways, so I'm kind of refreshing myself a little bit, and I just wrote this last night too. So one of the biggest things about A New Translation, I'm just going to call it that from this point on, is that it has a lot of new animation. The original director, Yoshiyuki Tomino, returns to direct the compilation movies. There are some good things, and there are some bad things, and it's give or take on how you kind of view it. You'll hear from me in a short bit what I think about these changes here, but a lot of it features basically like any other compilation movie. We have a mixture of a lot of these old scenes, or basically cuts from the original series. The newer movies, though, made in 2005, 20 years later from the original series, actually incorporates a lot of newly created scenes. These scenes either recreate certain events, so that way it can kind of gear it towards the alternative plot line is what I want to call it. Think of it as Back to the Future 2, right? And this alternative timeline. Or they completely add in brand new sequences and scenes that enhance the viewing of the movie, which is great. I would say a lot of that, it's like a lot of these action sequences and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. However, with this newer animation, though, we get this contrast between new animation and then the old animation. And it's very off-putting for me visually. I'm always a person that's very much into the engrossment, the encapsulation of the film, and not being taken away or being broken away from the screen's presence, if that makes sense. So, anything that can detract me from watching the movie, be an external or an internal interference, is what causes me to not really enjoy watching the movie. So in this case here with with A New Translation, the problem that I had with it primarily was that there was these cuts between definitely old footage. It's it almost looks kind of bad because it's very, very grainy at times of the original series, and then you get these new crisper looking images, these new animation sequences. So these compare and contrast really kind of takes me out. All of a sudden, you're watching something old, then you're watching something new, then you're watching something old, then you're watching something new, watching something old, watching something new. You see what I mean? It does this frequently throughout the movie. Now the first movie kind of uses a lot of majority of it is the old footage, or the series footage. I keep saying old footage. Let's call it series footage. It uses a lot of the series footage versus newer animation. I think it feels like almost 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie is newer footage. But that changes drastically when we hit the second and third movie, where it kind of feels like an even balance. I would even argue that the third movie uses more newer animation than series footage. But we get a lot of new animation that, again, either recreates major points that can direct it to this new plot line, or it creates absolutely brand new sequences, which is awesome because a lot of it's the fighting sequences, which are really, really cool, I feel. But again, this whole back and forth thing between old and new really, really offsets me as a viewer. I honestly think that if they were able to put in a lot of this newer footage into the series, these three movies, you might as well just redo the whole entire movie from scratch and follow the plot line that you want to follow, and just make the newer animation. I'm not sure why they did this. Honestly, I think it's just, for budgetary reasons. It's cheaper to just cut up the old master, put it in there, and then just create newer animation for the scenes that they want. I get it though with the newer animation though. Again, when I keep talking about it, it deviates the create a new plot. I like some of it because a lot of it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly the same scene that happened in Zeta Gundam, but they altered it. Either they did it in a different angle, a different type of a shot, and they would have like different dialogue that was intermittently added towards that. Additionally, and I say this weirdly though because I never really watched the Zeta Gundam original, not dubbing, but the original subtitling, so the original Japanese voice actors. But from what I can understand, and this is actually kind of cool, they got a lot of the returning voice actors from the Zeta Gundam series into the movies. And when they did a lot of the newer scenes too, their voices just sound almost exactly the same as they did back in 1985. So I thought that was kind of cool. I know that in a couple of the scenes though, because some of the actors either had, I don't know if they passed away or not, or they just couldn't reprise their role because of their age. But there was a slight difference between the voice actors or voice actresses. Not super noticeable for me at least, but from what I can understand, there was a little bit of a difference there. But I think that was really, really cool that they actually, not only were they able to do these newer scenes, which a lot of times if you think about it, 20 years later, it's going to be really hard to get actors and actresses to voice their characters and sound exactly the same when they haven't done it in 20 years. So I think that's really, really cool. Let me see here what we got. I keep forgetting what I got here. I want to say hi to you, new viewer. Oh, yeah, so with the newer scenes, though, and a lot of these plot deviations to create this newer plot line, and I'm not going to spoil anything in this review here, that's not going to be the same when I do What's the Gundam Difference, is that it really alters the movie to be more a little bit of a faster pace. So, again, we are taking 50 episodes, condensing it down into 3 separate hour-and-a-half-ish movies, right? A lot of subplots, character developments, or action sequences are completely removed, omitted, cut out, just to fit in the time frame. Because they did this type of editing too, and how short the movies are, it's incredibly fast-paced. It's almost at neck-break speeds at how this movie progresses. I would akin that these 3 movies are almost like an action movie, where there's very little character development. Everything's mostly driven by the plot, the story, not really the story, but the action, for the most part. The action dictates what's going to happen next, rather than following a very consistent plot line like the series does. With some of this character removal stuff, it's a hit and miss. A lot of characters, such as Camille, for an example, suffers a lot. Jared suffers, I think, the most. I don't like Jared as much as a character, but I think he's a very vital character in the Zeta Gundam series, and being a primary antagonist towards Camille. And in the movies, he basically is like Team Rocket. He shows up, gets knocked out, and kind of blasts off, and then he comes back again. That's what he is. He's just this random person that constantly shows up, rather than actually being a known protagonist. The speeds that this film goes at, though, is actually enjoyable for the most part. I think at first it almost ramps it up too much at points. So, like, the first movie has a very nice speed pacing. The second one kind of ramps it up a little bit and goes great. And then that third movie just ramps it up all the way, and it goes like, that kind of speed. It almost hurts the movie. Not almost. Sorry. I know, buddy. I know. It hurts the movie a lot. By the third movie, it takes it to a point where it cuts out so much and goes so fast with the plot line, and very loosely strung together. It's only been done so because of the action that really strings it along. It makes almost no sense. I know. Like, what do you mean by that, Zaku? I mean that the events that transpire in the third movie, because a lot of it in the series is connected because of the plot, alongside with the action and the character development. A lot of the third movie excises or cuts out, omits a lot of events that occur. And it makes it so streamlined to focus it more into space, so streamlined that it almost kind of doesn't make sense. Like, if you miss out on a piece of dialogue, you're gonna miss out reason why they are doing this particular thing or what's happening in this scene. It becomes a blur of just action for the most part. Give or take, however you want to look at that, that could be a positive and or a negative. Again, I'm going to go back to like a lot of the character changes too. Some of these kind of character changes though, like, again, the trade-off for making a more streamlined action story, right? We have our character development obliterated. But even with this obliteration though, there was some room actually for improving on certain characters, oddly enough. So, just to give you some hits and misses, right? Like, a miss, for an example, would be like, and not without spoiling too much, Rekua's reasoning of what she does. In the movies, doesn't really make much sense. The series delves more into it, makes a lot of sense. Shirako feels like this kind of weird villain who they make a big deal of, but he's not really that much of a big deal. In the series, it makes sense because he's a scheming person and he's doing all this manipulation, but the movies, it doesn't really come off that way. Camille gets completely changed with all the developments of characters that are to die and stuff like that have an impact on him, and we don't really see that really have that kind of an impact. Fauve, another example, is completely sidelined, which is very sad. But we get some positives. I mean, positives here, like, I love Haman as a villainess. She's awesome, and I love how they make her even much more of a manipulator in the movies than they did in the series. The series, she comes off as a manipulator, but not by a whole lot. She just seems like a very vindictive woman, especially against Quattro Char, and just overall her intentions. But the movies actually make her a little bit more manipulative, dare I say even kind of good. Like a good guy, not like antagonistic or anything like that, which is weird. Another character change is Wong. In the series, Wong often comes off kind of like a jerk, arrogant and brash, just because he's the main funder for... I apologize for the audio. But Wong often comes off as a jerk. He's very brash, very arrogant a lot of times, and that's because he's the main funder for Ayug. And a lot of times he has a conflict with Bright, or even physical conflict with a Camille, for an example. In the movies, though, that's practically removed. There was only like a couple instances where he's very argumentative with Bright, but for the most part, Wong is actually pictured to be a very nice guy. They even keep the scenes with Shita and Kum where he gives them a drink each. I was like, man, Tomino really wanted to make Wong look like a nice dude. And this is super weird coming from me, because if you watch the last video about the Zeta Gundam review, you know how much I hate Kotz. He's absolutely tolerable in the movie. There are some scenes where they keep it just like they did in the series, where Kotz kind of gets annoying, but he doesn't get to the overabundant, over-the-top levels of how annoying he could be in the series. And in the movies, they really cut that down. I think the only scenes that really bothered, like, you know, that still got my nerves is like how he ragged on Amuro for not being with the Ayug in the beginning when we first meet Kotz. And then towards the end, where Kotz is trying to assassinate Shirako, for an example. Those kind of things. There's also a lot of stuff in between, but that's cut out completely. So a lot of the scenes where Kotz kind of gets other characters, like Camille or Fa or Emma, in danger or potentially almost getting them killed to save them later, doesn't happen. So he comes off as a little bit of a more decent character. I actually don't hate him in the movies. So much more tolerable. Let's see here. Okay, so I do want to talk about this a little bit, and I'm going to try not spoil too much. I'm avoiding spoilers as much as I can. I'm going to hint at things, but I'm not going to talk about it very much. Now, with a new translation coming out, it was known what was going to happen. Tomino basically announced that he wants to change up the ending of Zeta Gundam. If you, again, listen to my last review, Zeta Gundam ended off in a very darker manner. And honestly, I can compare the two movies like this. What Zeta Gundam the series was like Empire Strikes Back. A new translation is like Return of the Jedi. If that doesn't give you much of an idea, I don't know what else will, but that really sums up the endings without spoiling a whole lot. Obviously, Tomino, like he stated, not a huge spoiler, but he wanted to have the ending. He wanted the ending better for a lot of the characters. We still get things that are still the same, but wanted to keep that up too. Personally, I did not like the ending of A New Translation. I think it was although the subplot that rails it into that manner makes sense. I just didn't like it. I prefer the darker ending of the original Zeta Gundam series. I apologize, Nero wants to now leave. He's exiting stage right. I believe that's stage right now. Yes. And he's gonna go sleep on the wife's chair. He's tired of my lap. Anyways, now I got my double hands. Yeah, double hands. Okay. So I apologize. I'm trying to get back to where I was at. Apologize again. Anyways, so I'm brain derping. I very little like little minimal sleep this day. So working with what I have. Bear with me for a moment here. Now it's brisk, baby. I'm actually drinking brisk. It's the strawberry watermelon, I think that's what it's called. I can't remember. It's the green one. Not advertisement or whatnot, so I'm not advertising. You can't even see my drink, but yeah. Anyways, though, the ending really, really changes, and it's very different than how it is in the series. I honestly prefer the original series ending. I like that darker, kind of almost, it's not bleak, it's more of a somber, melancholy type of an ending. Just like Empire Strikes Back, where a lot of bad things happen, but there is still hope. Whereas the ending of New Translation is very much like a Hollywood ending. And I honestly do not like that. I don't care much for Hollywood endings. What makes Zeta Gundam so interesting and great of a series is because it tries to take itself realistic, albeit the melodrama is not realistic at times, but tries to take itself pretty realistic and serious. And the way that the series went takes a very positive tone. Honestly, I wouldn't think that the ending of A New Translation really would gear it towards that, but I guess that's how they kind of alter and change things. So I will complain that I just don't like the ending of A New Translation, and I prefer the original Zeta Gundam series ending. That's pretty much it. That's not a whole lot much I have to say much about Zeta Gundam. There is a couple of smaller things I want to mention. Oh, sorry, about New Translation, but one of the smaller things I want to mention was like some things like the audio. So the audio throughout the entire movie, especially in the very first movie, oddly enough, was echoey. And it had this weird little echo behind some like resonance. I don't know why, and I'm like kind of weirded out. And I have the Blu-ray copy. I originally had watched this back when it was released on DVD, again by Right Stuff, and they released this like a couple of years later. And I think it was just kind of weird that they didn't clean up the audio. I mean, then again, it was already weird they didn't clean up some of the older animation grainy look, so whatever. Alongside with sound, they apparently have this music from a Japanese band called GACT. If I'm not mistaken, I think they did some songs for Gundam Seed Destiny, if I'm remembering correctly. The thing about it, though, is that the music that they put in the opening and the ending credits for all three movies from GACT really doesn't fit the tone of Zeta at all. You get all this kind of like like not hip hop. I want to just call like hard, like not hard rock, like rockish, punky kind of music for those openings endings, and then you get this '80s type music instrumental in the movies themselves. Speaking of that too, a lot of this instrumental music that I mentioned too is not really there in the series, or in the movies. It's very prevalent throughout the entire series, but in the movies, they really cut it down to only like certain parts of the movies where they'll play that music. Even when important characters die, that character death music doesn't really play. They only done it like a few times from what I can remember. And speaking of deaths too, there's actually a couple of character deaths that were omitted from the entire movie. Not that it really mattered a whole lot, but I think some of these characters did have some pertinence, and knowing what actually happened to them has some relevance. But that the path, again, instead of following the main path line, it's going to that Back to the Future 2 timeline. You know, it's not really going to have that much of an importance. Also, with sounds too, for some odd reason, the Mark II's gunshot or the beam rifle shots sound like the Scope Dog's rifle shots from Votom's. I don't know why they changed the sound effect instead of doing like a traditional like Gundam beam rifle sound effect. They made it sound more like a Scope Dog's rifle. So I'm like, it's kind of weird, but I like that sound effect, so it's not a bad thing, but I enjoyed it. But that's what I gotta say for new translation. Now, normally I would go into the segment for like, you know, my favorite suit that was introduced in the movie. Oddly enough, though, Zeta Gundam, a new translation, doesn't really introduce a whole lot of new suits. And I do say that every single movie, series, compilation introduces like new suits or whatnot. There's only like a few of them that I can think of, and the only one that I can name off the top of my head that was visibly new was introducing Haman Khan's custom colored Gaza C. That was it. Not really saying a whole lot. That wasn't really my favorite suit, but if you were really gonna have like pin me down like, Zagu, tell me your favorite suit from the movie, I'm like, okay. Not naming what I've already named from Zeta Gundam because we already know that. You want to know which was my favorite suits from Zeta Gundam? Watch the Zeta Gundam review. If not, at least for new translation, I enjoyed Haman Khan's Gaza C. But again, I love Haman Khan as a villainess. She's awesome. So, however, let's go ahead and jump into the next portion here, which is, I'm new to Gundam. Should I watch this first? I'm going to say no. Don't watch Zeta Gundam, a new translation first. Well, yes, it is a compilation of the original series. It can be kind of a fun watch too, but it's really hard to keep up with what's going on in the movies, especially towards the second and then third movie especially, where it just ramps up and goes at these neck-break speeds where you can't keep up with what's going on here. A lot of the plot changes and a lack of character development makes it really more like an action movie and kind of takes away from what really is Gundam. It sets a wrong expectation again. I don't think it's not a fun watch, but definitely not something I would recommend to somebody who's new to Gundam, especially watching Zeta Gundam. You would get a whole lot more watching the original series than this one right here. And if you jumped into here as a newcomer and you've never watched Zeta Gundam before, I'm like, the only reason I was able to enjoy a new translation too was, again, I've already watched Zeta Gundam multiple times, by the way, too. So as they were going at these neck break speeds, I was still able to follow up because I know exactly what happens in the plot. They don't deviate too much from major plot points, but they hit them really, really fast. And I feel like if I had came into this as a newbie, never watched Zeta Gundam at all, this movie wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. So this is something I would say, like, definitely do not watch a new translation if this is your first Gundam foray. Do not do that. You're better off watching other ones. I would even say, like, if you want to watch a compilation movie really bad, check out Mobile Suit Gundam, the original trilogy. That's definitely more worth it if you're new to Gundam and wanting to watch it. That one's easier to jump into, makes a lot more sense, and is more compounded in the right reasons. Funny enough, I think with the right reasons too, I think that if they were going to do the whole new animation kind of stuff, if they had taken the approach of like just new animation for the entire movies, I think if they just readjusted certain plot points, altered some characters or whatnot, I think it would have been a much more enjoyable movie and made a lot more sense. I think, in all honesty, if Tomio really, really wanted to go into an action-oriented mode for the movies, should really have cut out a lot of the character development. Take cue from a lot of action movies, remove a lot of the character development, maybe keep some of it primarily for Camille, since he's our main character. And, sometimes main characters kind of go through a little bit of a change in action movies. But if you think like in 80s action movies terms, they don't really change. They're the cardboard characters that are from the beginning, from the end, the exact same kind of character, and you're there to enjoy the ride. So if you can just make Camille more of an enjoyable character, not as whiny or whatnot, chop a lot of things, I think they could have made this a lot more of a streamlined movie, and I would be a little bit more behind it. That said, overall, a new translation attempts to mesh the old with the new, but in the process of doing so, it really loses itself in translating a series, a 50-episode series, into like hour-and-a-half-ish movies. The editing and the neck-break speeds of which the movie goes to gives a lot of action, fun action with new animation too. But because of this, it destroys a lot of character development, alongside with giving reasons to motives and propelling the plot in a more reasonable or tangible way. The new scenes, again, are very welcoming, but they have their double-edgedness to it as it cuts both good and bad things in the movie. This is not a new translation, but more like a bad translation, if you ask me. That said, Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, a new translation, gets a 2 out of 5. Man, Zaku, you were kind of really mean on that one. Why did you give it a 2 out of 5? You were kind of talking some good things on it. Yeah, I mean, like, the action was fun and all, but honestly, like, when I watch Gundam, I enjoy it for, like, the characters and the story and stuff like that. Not saying I don't enjoy it for the action. And kind of like what I mentioned before, too, if they were going to include all these newer scenes with newer animation, I think they should have just done away with all the old footage, or the series footage, and just make these movies completely of new animation. Adjusted all of the characters to be kind of like, and it sounds terrible, but like cardboard characters, like an action movie. Keep Camille either the same or have him change just a little bit throughout the entire movies. I think maybe, especially like maybe the second and third movie, and him being the main focus of character development. And then just, again, utilize the story to create that solid plot line and keeping all the action for the most part. I think it would have been a lot more of a enjoyable movie. But what we got here was this mishmash and cut-upness to try and appease the fans while trying to include people who are new to Gundam. And I think they did a really, really poor job of that. They mistranslate what makes Zeta Gundam so good. So that's how I feel about that. It's a shame. I really would like this movie to be more successful. I think it could have been a whole lot better if they fixed up some stuff here. Could have easily been a 4 if it followed what I was thinking in that terms, but eh. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account here. If you are watching this on YouTube and miss out on this live stream, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you can get notifications of new content. You can also follow me on my Twitter account. That's whenever I announce when I'm going live or what my schedules are looking like. So yeah, make sure to do all of that if you really enjoy this content. And I do want to thank you for watching and sticking around. And until the next time, I'll see you guys on the next review. Alright, so I'm not really ending the live stream if you don't notice. Again, like I said, I was trying to, sequence all that to be more or less like a review. Oh, you know what? I gotta redo that because I just realized that I was still in this shorter screen. It's really hard for me to like balance out between these two. I apologize. It's difficult. I'm trying. So let me just do it from that overall part. So overall, A new translation tries to mesh in a lot of the old with the new, but in the process of doing so, it becomes a translated mess when doing a 50 episode series into like hour and a half ish movies. The editing and the neckbreak speeds at which the movie goes gives a lot of great action, especially with the newer scenes, but destroys and obliterates a lot of the character development that gives reason to motives, that propels the original plot line like it was in the series. Yes, the new scenes are welcoming, but they have their controversial double edge, especially when it comes to cutting both good things and bad things. This is not really a new translation as much as it is a bad translation. Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. That said, Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, a new translation, gets a 2 out of 5. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, Zaku, why you were talking some kind of good things about translation. Why are you giving it a 2 out of 5? Honestly, it's kind of like what I said before, too. There's a lot of good things in the movie itself, be it by like action-wise and newer animation, but because of its little off-puttingness between the old and the new, if they just stuck to sticking around to just doing the whole entire thing, and this is how I think they could fix this in order if this was to be a more improved movie. Scrap all of the original footage, the series footage. Use only new footage. Think of it like an action, like an 80s action movie or even a modern action movie, right? Camille's the center focus. Either make him into a cardboard cutout character from beginning to end, and not being as whiny, but like just a cardboard kind of character from beginning to end of the series or the movies, or have him have a slight development like he should, basically, with like 4 and going forward, like the second movie onward. I apologize. Yeah, like keeping his character development consistent throughout. Utilize the new footage or new animation sequences to really rewrite a lot of the plot, rewrite a lot of these characters, and make it more streamlined. What we got in a new translation was basically a hodgepodge mix between trying to keep Gundam fans happy and then trying to incorporate or bring in new people to watch Gundam. But it failed miserably because a lot of the old footage or whatnot and the plotline itself won't make a lot of Gundam fans happy, especially if they love Zeta Gundam like myself. It just feels like a really weird mess, especially during the third movie. And then you get newbies who are going to come in here, and because of the neck-break speeds of the plotline and how fast it's going, with this weird mix of the characters and not making a lot of sense, the whole movie is just going to come off just as a mindless action movie rather than something that's going to be tangible, right? So I think there could be a lot more improvements for a new translation. Unfortunately, I don't know why Tomino went with what he did here. Again, half new footage, half old footage. I think you should have just scrapped all the old footage, scrap all the series footage, and really create a new translation of Zeta Gundam. This was not a new translation. This was like a bad copy from VHS to DVD. That's what it was like. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account. So when I go live, you can catch that. If you are watching this on YouTube and you miss out on my live stream, then definitely make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and that way you can get notifications when I do post the videos up on there. Additionally, too, leave a comment down below. Just like I love hearing from you guys on my live stream and talking to you guys on my live stream, I love to see what you guys have to say about my reviews or what you thought about the movies or the series. So definitely leave a comment down below if you can. Tell me what you thought about a new translation if you've seen it before. What do you thought about my opinion? And if you haven't already too, you can also follow me on my Twitter account. There I post whenever I go live alongside with a few other random things here and there. But yeah, I do want to thank you guys for watching, and until the next live stream review, I'll see you next time. Take care. Okay, now I got that one fixed up, corrected. Oh, and I just realized that this is gonna be that was a shorter review. Okay, so Folks, we are now going to go into Dengar territory. We are now going to do what's the difference? Or what's the Gundam difference? I love that. I thought I was being very clever with that one there. So without further ado, hey there folks, and welcome to a nerdy review. I mean, wait a second. I'm not doing a nerdy review here. I'm doing what's the Gundam difference? For those who are not in the know here, and this is the first episode of this too, this is a new little segment series I'm doing on my live stream here, where I will be examining and comparing the differences between two, like a Gundam series itself, basically the Gundam series, and comparing it to the compilation movies in the Gundam franchise. In today's episode, I will be reviewing Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam alongside with, a new translation. So I want to give you a little bit of a preface and set a little bit of expectation here too. So first and foremost, and this is a warning for you live streamers too, I'm giving you fair warning right now. This entire conversation, this entire segment will have major spoilers for both Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam the series and a new translation. If you do not want any spoilers whatsoever, please jump out of the live stream or turn off the video. If you want to know more about like the movies in the series, you can check out my previous 2 reviews too, but definitely come back to this at a later time because I'm going to break some stuff right now and I don't want to ruin your viewing experience. So this is your warning. This is the final one here. I'm going to go give you guys a little bit of expectation, but that's about it. Now's your time to turn away now. Aside from that, I want to set a little bit of an expectation too when we're talking about the movies in the series. Now, I'm not going to be doing a very comprehensive video or live stream of the changes. Again, this is a 50-episode series turned into 3 hour-and-a-half-ish movies. This basically chops out a lot of content. A lot of filler, but a lot of also important character development and important plot lines too. So what I'm going to be covering in this segment here is mostly just covering all the major changes, the more noticeable ones. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to cover more of the more noticeable changes here. So I'm not going to talk about all the small little things here and there or every little minute of the changes. I'm just going to give you the overall, the big stuff. And I'll let you know even what some of the bigger changes are too. And then for the sake of the video, I'm going to be doing a comparison of the movies to the anime series. So don't mistake me at times. I will try and correct myself at points, but I'm going to try and keep it along. There's a lot for me to go over, so bear with me here. I got my notes right here, and I'm gonna try and stream along here. So as we already mentioned here, most of the story is going to follow what we already know. I'm going to break this down into 3 of the movies each. The first one we're going to talk about, what I just put on screen here, is Heir to the Stars, the first movie. Now, the movie opens up pretty much the same way that we see in the original series here. Char infiltrating Green Noah 1 with Roberto and Opoly. But it's just made a little bit more leaner and faster. A lot of cuts here and there, but it's pretty much the same thing, just faster pace. One of the real changes, not a big change, but a real change here is the introduction of Camille. In the series, we're introduced to Camille through his school, alongside with Fa and so forth. In the movies, though, we're introduced to Camille already in the interrogation room after attacking Jared. We don't even see that part yet. That comes in much later on in a flashback for Jared. But we see Camille and introduce to him like that, where they're already accusing him of being a AUG sympathizer. So it's already changing the tone and how we identify Camille to begin with. Speaking of that too, we don't get to see Fa at all until later on, after Camille steals or takes the stolen, or flies over with the stolen Mark II above Fa. And that's how we first time see Fa as well. We do see Jared as well, but we're introduced to him being an absolute klutz and dropping the, if I'm not mistaken here, Unit 2 into the Federation building, or Titans building. We're going to skip a little bit in the timeline here too. And as we're skipping along, we get a new footage with Bask and Camille's father, Franklin, as they're talking about wanting to get their hands on the AUG's new mobile suits. In this case, kind of like talking about the Rick Diaz, and then Franklin really taking akin to what Bask had said. We do get the scenes where Camille's mother, Hilda, and Franklin talk to each other, and even Hilda talks about and mentions about Franklin's mistress. We don't really get much of a confrontation between these two, and a lot of the scenes between the two were cut out for the most part as well. So, with these cuts, alongside with building up to it, it makes Franklin appear more of a colder character to Hilda, alongside to his son Camille. More focused, again, as Camille would mention later on in the movie, more focused on the mobile suits and more akin to what Bask was saying, like, I want to get my hands on these new mobile suits. These kind of things. Or like, I want to know more about these new mobile suits. We're going to skip a little bit more forward. Hilda's death still remains the same. Camille being affected by that. And just to preface it a little bit more too, another change that occurred during this portion, so I kind of jumped a little bit of ahead. So beforehand, as it builds up to that particular scene with Hilda's death, Emma does come over aboard to the Argama, but they added in new sequences that Franklin was in tow with her and had to go use the bathroom and make an excuse. There, we still follow the same plot line about, like, you know, how Blex and the crew try to explain to Hilda that the Titans are bad people and they're using dirty tactics and stuff like that. Camille goes out, after finding out about his mother, and that's where Hilda dies. Now, here's the next bigger change, is that the whole entire part after Hilda's death usually would have led up to Camille going alongside, or Emma taking Camille to the Alexandria, and he gets imprisoned for a short time. That entire episode is cut out from the entire movie. And anything that deal with Franklin and them bailing out of the Alexandria too are now combined. That's why Franklin is now on the Argama with Emma. So instead, what happens at this point after Hilda's death is that Franklin hijacks a Rick Diaz and attempts to escape with the Rick Diaz to the Alexandria. There we kind of skip within the series time frame, and it's the episode where Franklin dies. That very much follows the same. Camille and him do have their exchange with each other, and you can again see how cold he is towards Camille, rather than being like, he kind of cared about him in the series, but not so much so. It's just more deliberate. Good with the bad, right? Right after Franklin's death here, we are treated to a recreated sequence with newer animation of the lounge scene between Camille, Quattro, Reccoa, Emma. They're all sitting in the lounge and they're talking about what had just happened and trying to make Camille feel a little bit better. Now, Emma brings up the conversation about Char Aznable, and they all have a discussion about it. Camille actually has a different take on Char Aznable and has a little more of an amicable one here, too. That scene also ends with Camille sticking around, not being as angsty or angry about what happened, but more sad and remorseful about losing his parents, and after talking about how his father only cared about his work and his mistress, and same thing with his mother, only ignoring the mistress and just caring about her work. Likewise in the series, again, like I mentioned, Camille gets angry and leaves in that scene. We also have Quattro as the one that tries to talk to Camille about Char. It's kind of weird self-talking about yourself, but hey, I mean, that's Char for you. So that's one of the bigger changes right there too. It really alternates, and it's going to be showing a little bit more where Quattro / Char is no longer really going to be ascending towards this leadership role, and Camille is a little bit more of a grounded character rather than being a flippy and angry, angsty teen. Following after that one, we now come across, now that Emma has defected to the AUG, rather than we are taking, there's an episode where we go to Colony 30 and we actually see the horrors of what the Titans do. Emma actually learns about the Titans gassing Colony 30 from Rekwa showing her footage of the Titans gassing it, which is actually utilizing footage from that episode. If you have watched the series, you would recognize it's actually Camille in those scenes, but in this case here, it's just saying, oh, this is footage we found, and like, you know, Titans use G3 to gas Colony 3. And so that's what spurs Emma to really stick with the AUG here. Because of that, though, we cut out a lot of the episode, and we also lose a lot of footage and character development between Jared and Lila. That said, and speaking about Jared too, his character development throughout the entire movies is like absolutely obliterated here. He really comes off more like a Team Rocket villain, where he shows up, gets defeated, blasts off, and then he returns later again with a newer suit. Sometimes, no, he does. He comes with a newer suit almost every single time. That's pretty much it. Rather than being an actual consistent and a viable antagonist for Camille, he just is randomly reappearing, and he just somehow doesn't die. That's it. So it's kind of sad. I don't like Jared, but I do respect him as a character because his development is pertinent to Camille. And with that removal of Jared's character developments, we remove quite a bit of Camille's as well. That said, we're going to move along in the time frame too. So with Colony 30, the Colony 30 episode being removed, we're quickly brought towards bringing Bright and Fall into the Argama. We do get an introduction of Scirocco in his Macella as he flies by, but that's about it. He flies by the shuttle and startles Camille and Quattro, but there was no fighting. Unlike in the series where we do have an extensive fight scene with the two, or the three, but in the movies, he just flies by, freaks them out, and then that's about it. So that was kind of important, though, because we get to see a little bit more about Scirocco and get to have an idea of this mysterious man from Jupiter. So we're gonna do another jump here too. So now we're having the kind of plot lines now geared towards, hey, AUG is gonna team up with Karba to attack Jaburo, Titan's headquarters right now. So with that, we are then brought onto Earth, and then we see some scenes between old faces that we're familiar with from the original series of Mobile Suit Gundam. Again, we see Amuro, Fa, Kika, Katz, and Let's. And even though we do get to see him, a lot of Amuro's discussions with them and interactions with them are cut down to a minimum, especially later on when we get to the airport scenes. What's really kept intact here is Katz lecturing Amuro about, like, why aren't you paying attention? Why are you in with the AU? Why aren't you doing something? Da-da-da-da-da. That kind of stuff. That was kept in there for there, but other than that, a lot of it was excised for the movie's time frame. We're going to jump back over to the Argama as they're doing their drop-off from Earth's atmosphere, basically. And this is where we combined. We took a lot of the episodes between Jared and Lila here, and a lot of the development. Here, at this point, though, with the drop-off, instead of Lila dying earlier, we have her dying at this point alongside with Kakarkon. So she dies at the space portion of Earth's atmosphere, dying in a similar way that she did in the series. And then Kakarkon also dying the same way he died in the series, where he tries to attack Camille, fails, and then his value deploys, and then Camille just does a dishonorable kill, basically. But, you know, it's an opportunity he did not want to waste, and kills. No, I'm sorry, he doesn't shoot Kakarkon. His glider got too close and then pops his value. That's basically it. That's pretty much it. Reason why this is kind of important, though, is that the movies try to use those two deaths to fuel Jared's rage and anger towards Camille as we get towards the Jaburo fights inside underground Jaburo, right? And the conflict between Jared and Camille, because Jared has his hatred for Camille and the Mark II at that point. Whereas We lost a lot of more, again, that character development between Jared and Lila. We did keep some of those scenes, but not by a whole lot. And a lot of Jared's development as a character is axed and tossed out the window. So, again, everything that truly fuels Jared is just more of that moment rather than the overall arcing that builds him up. Losing someone he loved, and then losing his best friend, and then furthermore when we get to the fights underground Jaburo. Other than that, too, we progress a little bit more into the movie, and after the destruction of Jaburo, we follow the AU overall as they join up with Karaba and their Adunla while they're trying to find a spaceport. In this process, we are then introduced to Burian and Rosamia. Now, we do get a lot of non-stop fighting between Burian and Rosamia versus the Aldunla, so that's really awesome. A lot of new sequences were added in here, so I think it's almost 10 minutes of action sequences in her and her Gaplant, and Burian in his Ashimar. If I'm trying to, I always call it Ashmir, but it's Ashimar. So they're doing all the fighting right there. At the end of we're coming at the end of the movie now, and at the very end, Amuro and Kotz joins up with the Aldunla, just like they did in the series. They chase away Burian in the same manner alongside with Rosamia. And then there was a smaller, slightly newer scene with the reunion between Char and Amuro for the first time. I kind of liked that one a lot. It was really, really cool. And then we get a nice little freeze frame, just like it was in one of the episodes where it's we see the two suits falling in air with the Aldunla in the background, and then Kotz in the Homo Avis, I think that's what it's called, right? Flying upwards. And so there's a freeze frame. And that's pretty much the end of Heir to the Stars. Quite a lot of changes. Again, a lot of the changes were more focused on cutting down a lot of the combat, removing a lot of episodes, shortening it down as much as we can. The introductions of a lot of the characters were either altered or changed. Like, we never saw, like, the first time we meet Jared is actually when he gets in a fight with Camille, calling him, like, that's a girl's name. And Camille, we met him first at school. That's not happening. In fact, we see him in the interrogation room, and we think that he's now an AU member off the bat. So that's how they try to build the story off of. And a lot of sequence changes too, and and different placements of where characters had died or certain moments as well. So that's pretty much it for Heir of the Stars. Let's go ahead, and we're going to be moving on to the next movie here, and we're going to go into Lovers. I like how they actually title it right there too. Sorry, I had a little hair in my glasses here. And yeah, I just want to know, I really love these posters. They're really cool looking. I just gotta say that. Anyways. So with Lovers, literally continues where the last movie left off. It has no breaks. So we are still following the Aldunla. They now plan to go to the Hickory spaceport to help Quattro and Camille get into space. We get still a lot of new fighting sequences, especially with Burian and Rosamia versus the Aldunla's crew. In this case, Quattro and Camille. Burian's death remains relatively the same. It's in newer animation though, so I would say it's an alternative scene, but it's the same thing, same way he had died. With that though, Kotz never sorties in the Mark II. And does some of the stupider things that he does in the series. So that's completely omitted and removed out. But we still use a lot of the sequences that the Mark II was fighting in that time frame with Rosamia. And it's just imposed that Camille's using the suit. That being said, too, we still see the Rosamia's Gaplant's destruction and her ejection from it. But this is where things get a little bit weird, and I'm going to kind of jump way ahead, too. Is that it's not really confirmed whether or not Rosamia is dead at this point or is still alive. Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah. We don't know whether or not she's still alive or not, because we see her ejected from the Gaplant, but not really impacted by the explosion truly or anything like that. She does reappear as a new type spirit in Camille's final attack, but and I'll mention this too, that they completely remove her second arc where she returns, when she returns, and has an impact on Camille's character development. So that point, that's where she actually dies, but we don't see that. So it's not confirmed whether or not she's still alive or dead, but somehow she does appear as a new type of spirit. Go figure, but we'll talk more about that when we hit the third movie. Additionally, I want to mention too, because this is at the point where they're at the Hickory Space Base. They try to merge in sequences from one area to from location to another location. Roberto's death is completely omitted. Even though we were introduced to him in the very first movie, he was introduced in that beginning sequence, and he just kind of got phased out, almost like he was just a kind of a named pilot. And he dies at the Kennedy, if I remember, it was the Kennedy spaceport, but it was changed to Hickory, I guess. But his death was completely omitted, which has an impact on Opoly and the entire crew as well. Opoly the most, and helps him develop as a character. We're gonna scoot a little bit from that point here after the space launch off here. As we approach Hong Kong, though, we are treated to some new scenes, especially with Stephanie Wong, who now calls Wong her father. Which is weird because in the series, those two have no relation to each other other than Wong, or like they're working with the AU. That's about it. At this point, the real change, and that's kind of like the center of the movie here, the real change is the whole story that revolves around Camille and Four. Yeah. I just realized that the whole hand is right here. But yeah, the story between Camille and Four. So much of the cuts is basically reversing what we had seen in the series. So in the series, they first met each other with Camille's Mark II fighting the Psycho Gundam, but they don't know who each other are as pilots or anything like that. And then they meet in Hong Kong. Rather, we had this little flip around where Four is introduced right by where the cruise ship was docking, basically, and from there we see Camille and Four getting with each other and then talking and all that stuff like that. And we even skip like an episode later too, incorporating this whole Cinderella 4 stuff. So I think I kind of like it more because it makes it a little bit more of a cohesive story though here, and it tries to tell us more of this actual Cinderella-esque story rather than this like weird conflict, not weird conflict, but this convoluted conflict that the series tries to go about. So they kind of correct some things that the series does at this point here. But with all of that story involvement between Camille and Four, a lot of things got cut out in the middle. Amuro's fight to meet Stephanie Wong was cut out. We have the whole episode where Mirai was kidnapped, along with the kids that were kidnapped. That's completely omitted and cut out from this movie here. And Ben Wooder's character as a villain during this arc or time frame is reduced to more like a background villain. Now, here is one of the biggest changes in the A New Translation movies. And this is going to be revolving around Four's death. So in the series, Four survives the events of Hong Kong, basically, and survives Wooder trying to ram the Garuda into Argama. She does get shot, but she survives it, and she appears again later on in like this like Kilimanjaro Dakar arc, and that's where she dies, having a major impact on Camille's character development and going beyond that. In the movies, though, she actually dies when Ben headshots her. Sorry about this. Ingestion a bit. Okay, let me rewind a little bit. So, in the series, Four survives the events of Hong Kong, and Ben Wooder trying to ram the Garuda into the Argama, and then him shooting her when she was trying to give Camille the shuttle booster. In the movies, though, rewind all that. Blah, blah, blah. So in the series, Four So in the series, Force survives the events of Hong Kong, and alongside with Ben Wooder's attempts to ram the Garuda into the Argama, she gets shot by Wooder, and still was able to give Camille the shuttle booster to go into space. She would later reappear in the series in a second arc dealing with Kilimanjaro that bridges into Dakar. Her death there is impactful towards Camille's character and then leads us towards the Dakar speech. With her death earlier, though, it's going to omit that entire arc or storyline in the third movie, and I'll get to that again too. As well as that, in the movies, she's killed by Wooder when he headshots her as she's trying to give Camille the shuttle booster. It was clear cut that she is dead at this point, not a question or anything like that. I would almost harken this back to Miharu's death too, almost akin to that. Although Miharu didn't get headshot, she did kind of flung off the gun parry, akin to how For's body was flying off too. But with her death earlier on in the movies rather than later on, Camille's like sorrow and sadness is more contained at this point, and he moves on rather than this compression of all these deaths that happen later on that greatly impact his mentality and making the series a lot more darker. So we're going to see that the movies kind of go, as much as it kind of goes a little bit dark still, but it's going to be a lot more uplifting rather than dark. And again, as I had mentioned too, with For's death, we are not going to be getting the Kilimanjaro and the Dakar speech, and it's going to deviate much of the ending of the film, or much of the ending of the series, into space. Now, once Camille's up in space, we do get a lot of these fight scenes with Jared and the Argama alongside with Mauer, but any of the development between Jared and Mauer, like their love interests and stuff like that, really are drastically cut down again, just like Lila and Jared, just completely removed for the most part. Zeta Gundam does shortly and finally, the Zeta Gundam does appear shortly after Camille arrives into space, but it does come with another change here. We find out that, we basically learn that Camille never designed it. So, this is said in the movies, like Camille and Opoly are talking about the Zeta Gundam and how it's cool and like it's a newer suit and all that jazz like that, but never brought up the conversation that Camille designed the Gundam or not. In the series, throughout the beginning of several episodes, after Camille jumps in with the Argama, he designs a little bit of the Zeta Gundam. He talks about the designs for the Zeta Gundam. And then when Opoly finally arrives with the Zeta Gundam, they really have this conversation about like, oh yeah, so Camille, how did you come up with the idea for the Zeta Gundam? And he mentions about creating the Zeta Gundam basing them off the concepts of the Mark II and the Rick Diaz. So at this point here, Camille's not this super smart kid or whatnot. Again, going back to our Hair of the Stars, we don't see him as accolades as a student or as a mobile suit aficionado or anything like that. He's just coming off as more like a kid involved in the war, basically. So he's not super smart or anything of that nature. Or the creator of the Zeta at this point now. We're going to do another big, this time from that point, we're like more than halfway through the movie. We're going to do another big jump. We're going to skip over a lot of things because it's pretty much what happens in the series, albeit they cut down and shorten a lot of it, such as Sarah's deception and escape from the Argama to Commodore Black's assassination in Dakar. Those, again, remained intact. We get kind of towards the point with the whole colony drop Jamaicon tries to do, and the attacks that lead up to it. But the episodes here are like kind of combined and mashed in together to do one thing regarding the colony drop onto Granada. So a lot of scenes and episodes were cut and mixed and matched. Newer fighting sequences were introduced here too. Mauer dies here, just like she does in the series, but it makes a lot less of an impact than it did in the series. Again, because we cut out a lot of Jared's and Mauer's sequences and character development together, We really don't get much of an idea of why Mauer really sacrificed herself for Jared. It just gets tossed out a window, and it just comes a little bit off kilter. I'm like, okay, so she likes Jared, but enough to kill herself for? It didn't make much sense. So it really takes a lot of her sacrifice, makes it a whole lot less. Let's just put it that way. And again, now for the remainder of the movie here, we're going to kind of like jump a little bit more ahead too. It's still pretty much following alongside with the series here. Again, cutting down a lot of sequences and scenes. Maybe a couple episodes here and there too. Basically, with... sorry. Basically with Sarah planting a bomb in Granada to Hamon's forces saving the Argama. With that said, too, Hamon's forces saving the Argama, there's a lot of newer sequences with the flock of Gaza Seas. I'm just going to call it a flock. A flock of Gaza Seas saving them and stuff like that, and like being around the Argama menacingly almost. I do want to say, though, and I can't really pinpoint it at this point when I'm doing the series and movie comparison here, but somewhere around here, though, we lost out on the episode where Rekko is sneaking into the Dogo Skier, meeting Shirako, and Jamaican's death is completely omitted. Now, while Jamaican's death being omitted isn't really big, he is kind of a key Titans character, so it was kind of important, but I guess for the sake of the movies, he wasn't important enough. I mean, he is the one that did the colony drop idea, so I don't know. But removing Rekko sneaking into the Dogo Skier, meeting Shirako at that point too, really takes away a lot of her development and reasons ascertained to why, after she got rescued by Yazan, that she really sided or wanted to join up with Shirako. Now it just seems that it's going to be more like a new type lure than anything else, which contradicts some of the new type stuff that we'll see later on in the next movie. I also want to mention too, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit too with the removal of Rekko's sneaking in scene too. Back in the first movie as well with Heir to the Stars, we lost a lot about Rekko's going through the jungle and meeting up Kai Shiden. A lot of that was dropped off, removed. By the end of the movie, the next time that we see Rekko after she leaves off for Jaburo is that Camille rescuing both Rekko and Kai before Jaburo explodes. So I just wanted to kind of jump back to that. Other than that, jump back to Heir to the Stars. That is the end of Lovers. So again, we kind of see some more changes here with the storyline and the characters. More so we see with the change for Four's death. Her death really has a significant impact in the story timeline. And that's where, like, we kind of have a little bit of a deviation, not by a whole lot, but by the second movie, this is where I say it's like Back to the Future 2. We now have an alternative timeline now. Where 4 was supposed to die over here, 4 died right here. Diverging the timeline and now creating this separate path that will now deviate. And you're going to see bigger differences in the third movie here. Now, with that said, we're going to be moving on to the final movie, Love is the Pulse of the Stars. I gotta say it again, but I love the length of that name. Give me 1 second here. I think I'm getting a little bit of a squeaky voice. My voice is a little bit breaky right now. Okay. And we're almost here. Okay, so with the movie beginning, we continue where we last left off. Most of the beginning remains intact with a lot of new scenes here. Again, we got from the botched meeting with Axis and Hammond with the Ayug to Yazan's Hambrabi attack that leads to Rekko being rescued / captured by him. Not a whole lot changes there. Just a lot of scenes are shortened or cut down. Maybe an episode or two was removed and action sequences combined together. I apologize. Alright, let's see here. Now, this is where things is going to get really messy. Now, that was just the first, I want to say, not even quite 20 minutes of the movie. The remainder of the movie is going to get very messy here. I'm just going to give you the plot points, and I'm going to hit on all these other changes. But basically, the plot follows like this, and this is where it gets really confusing. Bask wants to use the Grips Colony 2 laser on Granada. We have Hamon building a dicey relationship with the Ayug, and then we have Hamon's failed meeting with Jamaikon. Jamitov. Sorry. So that's going to be... So if this is the timeline of the movie, right? We just got to this part. We're going to get to this point of the movie, right? So all that time frame right here. Now, in the series, at that point, the second 4 arc takes place. What took place in Kilimanjaro, and then the Dakar speech takes place there. So what the movie tries to do is keep everything in space throughout the entire time instead of going back to Earth. Because of this, again, Ford's death doesn't have a huge impact on Camille going forward from that time frame. And Char doesn't really develop as a character. The Dakar speech was important. With Blex's assassination earlier on in the second movie, Blex wants Char to ascend and take his role as Char Aznable, right? And be the leader of Ayug. In the series, he does this by going to Dakar and doing that speech. Because that part never took place... Oh, I apologize. Let me backtrack here. Alright, so with that said, Lovers is over. We are now going to be jumping into Love is the Pulse of the Stars. This is where things get a little bit messy, and I'm going to try and make it visually sensible here, okay? Whew, oh boy. Here we go. So, the beginning of the movie is pretty much staying the same with the storyline in the, or plot line in the series. So most of it still stays intact. I'll bet, things were shortened, episodes were removed, and things were condensed down. But we got the botched meeting with Haman and Axis, with the Ayug, to Yazan's Hammurabi attack. That leads to Rekua's, from the botched meeting between Axis and the Ayug, to Yazan's Hammurabi attack, which led to Rekua's rescue capture. I don't know how you want to put it, but rescue captured by Yazan. From that point here, we're going to go talking about these points right here, and I'm going to try and shorten down and talk about the plot points here while I try to talk about the major changes. So during this time frame here, we have Bask wanting to use Grips 2 as a colony laser, So from this point here, we have Bask wanting to use the Grips 2 colony laser to wipe out Granada. Haman building a dicey relationship with the Ayug when she comes on board to the Argama. And then Amon's failed meeting with Jamitov, where Jared attempts to kill her and she cyanide bombs them and stuff like that. So that's that point right here. Now, series-wise, somewhere around that time frame, that's where the second 4 arc occurs that happens in Kilimanjaro, alongside with the Dakar speech. Like I mentioned earlier here, with Ford's death happening way earlier on the series, the timeline now has deviated into this point where now her death doesn't have as much of an impact on Camille's mentality going forward to the remainder of the movie. And because they don't have to go down into space for Dakar, everything's now maintained in space, keeping, again, a streamlined story or plot within the space time field. But, again, with that change, though, we now lost Char's major character development in the entire series. Back in Lovers, Blex's assassination, Blex was trying to encourage Char to now Quattro to become who he is, Char Aznable, and lead the Ayug. In the series, he does this by doing the Dakar speech once they get down from Kilimanjaro. Without any of that taken out, or with all that taken out, Char no longer has any more character development. He just remains as a soldier and content that way. He does not develop as a leader. He never steps into his leadership role. So that's completely obliterated. Now, we're going to kind of move a little bit more forward here, and that's where we kind of get a little bit dicey. Now, at this point here, we continue the movie with the plot line revolving around Grips 2. AU seizes it after... Well, sorry. Before they seize it, they kick off with the fight at the gates of Zedan, and Axis using Axis to ram the gate of Zedan. We still got a lot of the fight sequences, new and old here. Opley dies as he does in the series. Not as impactful, sadly to say. And then, let me see here. Actually, I'm going to put this over here. Sorry, I apologize. I got myself mixed up here. That's what I was... Let me kind of start that back a bit, because I got a little bit lost in my direction here. So, the movie couldn't... So, with Char's development being completely axed out, we continue alongside with the plot in the movie here, and we're going to continue towards this next part. And most of this is now going to involve around Grips 2. We have now AU making an assault on Titan's new base, which is the Gate of Zedan, or Zedin, and then Axis being used... sorry. So, we continue... I'm just tired right now, and I'm doing my best. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Okay. So, with the changes of Char's development being completely removed, we now continue with the remainder of the movie towards this portion here. I want to say, I can't give you a time frame, but giving you at least a visual gap frame here, right? And we're going to continue with now AU making their assault on Titans, attacking their new home base, which is the Gate of Zedan, which is Abaraku, and then getting help from Axis, literally using the Axis asteroid to ram the Gate of Zedan. At this point here, there's a lot of the fights, a lot of episodes are cut, fight sequences are mixed and mashed into this point here, and one of the major character deaths, Opley, who dies here, dies the same way that he does in the series. So the only thing that was changed is that his impact of his death and how it impacted everybody on the crew of Argama. Following after that point, we do get Hamon's second meeting with Jamitov, and then Katz's failed attempt to assassinate Shirako. Much of that remains the same, albeit cut down and made faster. And then, of course, Shirako using Jamitov's death to get the rest of the Titans to rally behind him in his cause. And then Bask wanting... we had some additional scenes of Bask, who originally wanted to control the Titans by himself, now is opposing to Shirako, and not wanting... Just like he did in the series, not wanting to be alongside, but now plotting to kill Shirako, too. Also talking it over with Yazan in newer scenes. Now, this is where things kind of deviate and get a little bit more different here. And I'm going to talk about the first part, and then we'll get to the second part next. So we're now pretty much at the very end, like the last 3 episodes in this series, basically. But we're also in the last 20 minutes of the movie, I want to say. So at this point, later on, Bask is killed. However, his death is different than it is in the series. In the movie, Yazan and his mate betray Bask and destroy the deck of the Dogosphere. I apologize. Destroys the deck of the Dogosphere, if I'm not mistaken here, and kills Bask. And he does this because like he's on Shirako's side, not with Bask, but playing along. In the series, though, it's Rekua that shoots the deck of the Alexandria and killing Bask. If I'm not mistaken, I keep mixing up the ships at times here. But either way, while his death is done at the hands of somebody that's different, again, Yazan in the movies, Rekua in the series, both of them were people who are under Shirako. So that's the only thing that's still the same. he was killed by someone that was going underneath, or that was under Shirako, and not under him and the remainder of the Titans. Now, the next big change here, too, during that time frame, is the second arc with Rosamia. In the series, Rosamia... So let me back up a little bit. So, the next thing I want to talk about is that we have the second arc. Oof, dang it. I apologize. Hey, this is like real filming, so you're getting all my little bloopers here, too. So if you're curious of watching my previous videos and you see this, you go like, yeah, so I can see, like, you know, like, it's a lot of work at times, and, you know, I'm reading the script or whatnot. But imagine if I'm not reading the script and I'm doing this, like, you know, my normal thing. So you're going to see a lot of the bloopers, and hope you guys enjoy it. Whew. Okay. Oh, it is raining again, I think. Anyways, let us continue. So before we get to the remainder of the 20 minutes, let me backtrack just a little bit between that, like, earlier 20 minutes too, right? At that time frame too, the second Rosamia arc was supposed to occur as well. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, back in the first movie of Heir to the Stars, Rosamia kind of disappeared. Her gut plant was destroyed and she was ejected out, and we don't know whether or not she's alive or dead. In the series, we find out that she's still alive, and she was kind of like brainwashed to believe that Camille is her brother. And we had this whole entire arc on a colony with her and Camille, and them developing and so forth. Camille having feelings for her, but not like, you know, like love, but more of sympathy for her, and feeling bad for cyber new types, and her reminding him of Four, basically. So again, Four's death, alongside with Rosamia's interactions, and then her eventual death, which does happen in the series, happens in like the 48th episode, if I'm not mistaken here. Same episode that Bast died in. That's why I'm saying that last 20 minutes. Same episode that Bast died in, Rosamia dies as well. And that detriments Camille, because he's trying to save her so hard, and he could not save her. Now that we don't have anything to do with Rosamia, Camille is now in a much more happier state of mind. Although we are going to be having a lot of characters that do die, he's going to be in a much more stable state of mind here. I also want to point out again that Rosamia's spirit will be appearing with Camille's final attack, and I will talk about that too. But again, that second arc for Rosamia and Rosamia's death is completely omitted from the movies, and that alters and changes everything for Camille and the ending of this movie. Now we're going to go into the last 20 minutes of the movie. Pretty much, and I want to say everything with the last 5 minutes or so of the movie is relatively the same it is in the series. Albeit much more condensed down, much more contained and kept together. So many of the deaths occur at this point here. So we have Sarah, Kotz, Captain Henkin, Rekua, Jared, Emma, and Shirako. All their deaths remain pretty much the same, albeit two of them are a little bit alternative though. Kotz's death in the movies, he dies pretty much because of his impact into the asteroid, and then his ship goes spiraling off. In the series, it's a lot more crueler because after he hits and crashes the asteroid, and his G Defender plane is going a little bit off, Yazan takes the final shot and destroys his G Defender, killing Kotz at that point. Sorry. So let me try and reverse. So Kotz's death is a lot less crueler in the movies here, because what we see here is that he just dies crashing into the asteroid, and then his G Defender floats off a little bit. That's about it. In the series, though, Kotz, after crashing into the asteroid, floats off a little bit and has little new type fantasies. Yazan takes the last shot at him, destroying his G Defender and killing him. His death is a lot more crueler and a little bit more mean-spirited, albeit he was a pretty terrible character in the series, so give or take on that one. But considering how Kotz was changed as well in the series, and I'll talk about character changes too, his death was a lot less crueler. A little bit more off-screen, if you would say, too. Shirako's death, on the other hand, too, is another major change here. In the movies, in the movie here, Shirako dies very much akin to the same. Camille does his final attack in his Zeta Gundam using the Wave Rider form to crash the Wave Rider tip into Shirako's the O's cockpit, basically, crushing him inside. Shirako has his last words, and then he dies. At that point, Camille ejects out of it, and the O, alongside with the Jupiterus, explodes. Camille transforms out slowly from the Zeta Gundam and appears to be completely fine from those events, and nothing else beyond that. I'll talk a little bit more about that ending too. Actually, so ejects out and then comes out of the event unscathed for the most part. He rejoins with Rekoa, and they have a heartful reunion and loving embrace at the very end of the movie, basically. That is the happy ending, and there's a little bit more to it too, but we'll get to that in a moment. But what happens in the series is absolutely completely different at that point. Once Camille rams the O and crushes Shirako inside of it in the cockpit, Shirako goes like, I might die, but I'm taking your soul with me, Camille. And his new type aura surrounds Camille and basically wipes his mind. He just erases his mind, basically. The Wave Rider does get ejected from it and just floats off. The O explodes alongside with the Jupiterus, and the Zeta Gundam floats around. Fa tries to check in on Camille, but Camille's not really responding back to her directly. He's just kind of babbling randomly in his suit. And Fa is horrified to the fact of the matter that Camille is pretty much turned into a vegetable. The series ends off with them trying to take the Zeta Gundam back to the Argama. Things seem kind of dour and very, very sad and grim a bit. A lot of people have died. A lot of people were lost. But the Titans have been defeated, and the Axis is a looming enemy in the front ahead. And that's kind of how Zeta Gundam ends, series-wise. Continuing a little bit more with the movies, though, and that's where that big difference is that we get that happier ending with Camille. He gets more of a fulfilled ending. We also get more conclusions with a lot of our original characters from Mobile Suit Gundam. So we get some concluding scenes with Amuro, Kika, Let's, and Fa talking about things, and it seems a little bit more relaxed there. We also get a extra scene with Kai meeting up with Sayla, and Sayla actually has a speaking line here too, which she didn't have in the original series, but has a speaking line with Kai, and again resolves some things. And then we also get some brand new scenes with Haman and Minerva talking about the Axis going to the Earth side and just ending some things, and it seems a little bit more optimistic rather than pessimistic. Again, much of this ending is much lighter, much happier, and dare I say it, Hollywood-esque. So those are some pretty big differences here. Again, one thing I want to kind of backtrack a little bit too is with Camille's final attack on Shirako here. We do see all of the new type spirits that had died during this battle here. Everything transpired is just the same. Again, Rosamia's spirit shows up with no reason or context because we never saw her die in the movies, and she never got her second arc where we see her die in the series. So her reappearing here makes no sense whatsoever. But okay, it's another new type to power up the Zeta Gundam alongside with Camille and just finish off Shirako. All in all, that's pretty much all the And that's basically the end of Love is the Pulse of the Stars and the overall with the new translation movies. Quite a bit of changes here, especially with this last movie. Again, like I mentioned here, we shortened down a lot of conflicts and fights, removed a lot of episodes, kept everything basically up in space. Four's earlier death prevented them from prevented the AU to go back down to Earth to do Dakara's speech. Char never fully develops as a character or as a leader, essentially. And then we have a much happier ending for Camille and everybody else too that lives after the final fights. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I do want to talk a little bit about the character changes here that are very prominent to me and that stick out in my opinion here. Again, what we see here. Oh, give me a second here. Hang on. You need to get the water. You need to take what? The water, the hose.
You left water in it.
No, I sprayed it up.
No, it's full again. Look at it.
What the hell?
You didn't close it all the way.
Oh, my bad.
Can you help me?
Yeah. All right, guys, give me one moment here. I'm going to help the wife. She just got back home. Give me a few moments here. I will pause this, and then we will continue. I'm going to talk about characters and so forth. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm now back. I gotta apologize for all the hold-offs there. Let me get back to our little spiel here. All right. Sorry for the wait right there. Long story short, wife came back home, had to help her bring stuff in, and then we were also planning out for dinner tonight. There was a place that we want to go to. We haven't been to literally for a year since they just got kind of reopened, and unfortunately, we were trying to do reservations for this for today, then the future week, and then another week, and they just were booked. So that's a little sad for the both of us. So that's okay. That's okay. It is what it is. But yeah. So I just want to give you guys some idea at least. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue here. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the characters overall. Let me actually, we'll use. I love this poster right here. This is so nice. I don't like too much of the white background, but I just like this like totem-esque look. It looks really cool. Anyways, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about the character changes. I talked a lot more about actual changes in the series and the movies, but not too much about the characters themselves. And I find it's very important to actually recognize that these character changes actually have an impact greatly on not only just the story, but also just your viewing pleasure. First one I want to talk about is Camille for the most part. Like I kind of mentioned in earlier on already, Camille's character development, instead of in the series, he comes off as this whiny, angsty brat, and he develops more as a pilot. He's still an emotional pilot, though, but he's more attuned, especially with his new type abilities and so forth. The deaths of those he loved or were close to him have a great impact towards building him as a character. Throughout the movies, though, we lose a lot of these character developments, a lot of character interactions he has with a lot of people here. We're mostly focused on, like, in the very first movie, we're focused more about Camille's relationship with his parents, even though that was very small. He makes it a bigger impact. The second movie, we're only focused really more so between him and Four, and that's about it. And then the third movie, there is zero development for Camille for the most part. He is just there for the ride. He is the pilot. He's the cardboard character. So everything that kind of makes Camille our main protagonist and an interesting character is pretty much out the window here. Again, with his developments too, certain types of actions that would have taken place or certain things would have happened would have drastically altered the plotline of the movies. Again, Four's earlier death, alongside with Rosamia's omitted death, completely changes Camille's outcome in the end of the movies to be more of a happier one rather than a sadder one. Again, Four's death, towards the end, he was already sad and mopey about that, and then with Rosamia reminding him a lot of Four, and then her death, and he couldn't save her, is like a double hit, and that just drives it home with Camille being sad and super angry. She's not pictured here, but Fa really got sidelined here. She's like wallpaper in the movies. In the series, she has a lot of development. She gets into a lot of fights with Camille. She's trying to prove herself in a sense. She goes through arcs and development of trying to become a pilot, failing and then trying again, failing and trying again, trying to like keep up with like the likes of Emma and Rekoa, for an example. So it didn't really make much sense in the movies where she kind of appears. She's like a love interest in a sense for Camille, but not so much so. It actually is more pronounced in the movies than it is in the series, oddly enough. They seem more like a bickering couple in the series, whereas they're a little more endearing in the movies. But Fa taking up the Methus and fighting and all that jazz really comes out of nowhere. Like, where did she get the skills? I mean, they kind of mentioned about training and whatnot, but not by a whole lot. So that was like a huge change for her. Really didn't like that change for Fa at all, and it's kind of sad to see her development just forget her. I would almost akin the movies like Shirako's mentality, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of the female characters too, is that they're just mostly forgettable. They're just women in conflict. That's it, and that's about it. To be used and tossed, as Reko would say about Shirako, and that's how I feel about the movies too. Quattro and Char, which I don't have pictured here. Actually, I can get you pictured him. There you go. Quattro, or also known as Char. I mean, come on, it's Char. His development, like I mentioned already too, is completely axed. In the beginning of the movie, the first two movies, they keep trying to build him up to be like, hey, Char, become a leader, like, do this. And then Blex really edging him on with his death after he gets assassinated to take leadership, become Char Aznable again, and take leadership of the AUG. In the third movie, what happens in the series, again, we were supposed to have that Dakar speech, and Char finally assuming his leadership-esque role, never happened. Char remains as a grunt for the most part and sticks as a grunt. Doesn't seem like Char at all, seems really out of place for his character, and really, really just shuts him down, just becoming more of a cameo appearance like anybody else from the 1 Year War, like Amuro and everybody else. Scirocco is another character too, as I mentioned kind of briefly too, but he really just comes more off like a strange villain than anything else. He doesn't seem like a scheming manipulator like he is like in the series. We see him more just he appears, and that's about it. People don't like him. Some people like him. They're attracted to him for some odd reason, and kind of talk about the new type magnetism, but they don't really dive into that a whole lot. So he just comes off weird. I feel like a lot of his developments got lost. I'll bet his was very spread throughout the entire series, so it's really, really hard to get him down as a very concise kind of a character. He was just a villain for the villain's sake and not really having too much of a motive or understanding behind that, for us at least. Rekkoa. Man, Rekkoa was already a character that was already controversial for me because I got frustrated with her in the series, but that's just because, like, in the series, or so in the movies, her betrayal seems super left field. Like, why did it happen? Why did she betray the Argama and go with the Titans? Why did she have this allure to Scirocco other than, like, oh, he's kind of a new type? We lose all of that, and she makes some throw-out comments, which is in the series, but they kept it in the movies, which made no sense, which is, like, all the men in the Argama are the same. They just want to use women and blah, 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 blah. And then, same thing with Scirocco and da-da-da-da-da. We kind of get that comment with Scirocco, understandable. What did she mean about the Argama? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So in the series, it seems like she had a tryst with Char. She might have some relationship with other characters too. We're not too sure, but at least we know she had something going on with Char. We kind of get an idea of that in the movies when he gives her a kiss, but that was super throwaway. It wasn't really anything. It didn't really mean much. Like, oh, the moon just want to use women. Like, you position Char to give you a kiss. That's not really what you're saying, Rekkoa. Now, if we kept the scenes in the series, though, totally, it's understandable because men of the Argama did kind of baby her alongside with other female characters too, and she wanted to be her own sense of a character alongside with her tragedies of loss in the 1 Year War, so it made more sense. And then of course the sneaking onto the Dogo skier, meeting Scirocco for the first time, really gives off, like, man, she can get that new type magnetism from him, and she kept on thinking about him and being lured by him. So all that being removed makes Rekkoa's betrayal make no sense whatsoever in the movies, but her betrayal in the series makes sense. I'll bet it's a little bit more frustrating, but at least it makes sense. You can understand where she's coming from. That said, too, there are actually some positive changes too I want to at least highlight. Haman, of all the female characters, actually got a big boost for her. Haman actually gets some really good character developments and being more of a manipulator in the movies than she was in the series. In the movies, she plays off both the Argama, the Titans, and Scirocco. And she's just like, I'm gonna go with whatever's the better suitor, essentially. Like, she's the one that's making the choices. She was the one that was controlling everything else, and she wasn't the one that was being played by anyone. She was the player. And I mean, ultimately, she does side with the Argama though, and was thinking twice with Scirocco in a sense. But the dealing that she did, like, it made her a lot more of a powerful female character amongst the cast that we have here. Another change that happened too is Wong. In the movies, Wong was incredibly nice. He does have some words with Bright, and he we relatively see him as a really nice guy. I mean, albeit he does have some different opinions at times, and it's very enthusiastic sometimes too. In the series, though, Wong is an outright jerk, a brash, obnoxious, at times overzealous person. That's just because he's the main funder for the AUG, so he just kind of like throws his weight around, saying like, "I pay for you guys, so I can treat you how I want." I mean, he gets into a lot of verbal conflicts with Bright as a captain, trying to make his commands of the Argama, and then he also gets into actual physical altercations with Camille multiple times. So I think it's a big change. The one thing that they did keep in there, which I thought was nice, is both series and the movies, they did keep the scene where he gives Shinta and Kum a drink each, and showing how he can be a nice person. He's a family man at points too, I would assume. Makes more sense, especially that in the movies, it's hinted that Stephanie Wong is his daughter, and he could be sensible towards people. Last person I really want to talk about for character changes too is Kotz. I again mentioned this, as I mentioned in the New Translation review, alongside with the Zeta Gundam review, but in the series, I hate Kotz with a burning passion. He's one of the few Gundam characters in the entire Gundam franchise I hate so much. And when he died in the series, it was a sigh of relief, because finally a terrible person is dead. that is terrible. Okay, but in all honesty, he's a very annoying character. A character that when he died, I did not have any remorse nor care for. But and I say this because in the series, he does a lot of stupid things that will get anybody else killed. He has plot shield around him up until that point that he dies. He also gets a lot of the characters, Camille, Emma, Fa, Rekua, into dangerous situations, and then he would at times save them too. And it comes off like, okay, well, I saved you guys. I'm like, but you didn't really save us. You put us in this situation before, so you're rectifying a situation, not really saving us here. It's your fault to begin with. So that's a frustrating thing about Kotz. A lot of those sequences, those episodes, those moments are taken away in the movies. The only thing that were really intact that was where you can see Kotz can get very annoying was the first time when we see Kotz when he was talking with Amuro about not joining the AUG and just getting frustrated with Amuro. It's not as drawn out as it was in the series. It's just more poignant right there. He gets a little bit annoying there, but it's like it's reasonable because of how Kotz grew up with Amuro on the white base and viewing him as a hero. Made sense. Fast forwarding a little bit more forward into the series too, or the movies, the other time that he was annoying was the whole thing that he had for Sarah, and then wanting to free her from Shirako. So he gets this idea about infiltrating the Guadin and trying to assassinate Shirako while they're having a meeting with Haman, basically, and with Jamitov. And in the movies, it's much more shortened down, cut down, and much more palatable, basically. He's not as annoying or getting other people into danger, like Camille in danger, or Char in danger, or anything like that, too. So I thought that was kind of a nice thing there. I mean, other than that, and he showed a little dissent towards Zeon. Not that it frustrates me or whatnot, but like in the series, he's so vehement about it. And it wasn't just him going there to assassinate Shirako. In the series, he was trying to assassinate Haman Khan because he does not like the Zeon as well as he doesn't like the Titans. So that was his motive. So that was a big change for Kotz there. He actually was he was a likable character. Well, not likable. Hold on, that's saying like, he was a tolerable character. He wasn't as bad as he was in the series. So, that's critical when you're trying to build up characters here. All in all, that's pretty much all I had to say in regarding to what's the Gundam difference between a new translation and the original Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam series. But that's what I was able to discern from. Again, not super comprehensive, just a lot of the major changes and things I saw and noted down and really, really commit to memory, just because I had watched the series and I just watched the movies like back to back, basically. So I think that was like the perfect timing there. But tell me what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave me a comment down below. If you're watching on the stream, comment like you're already doing right now. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account when I go, so you get notifications when I go live for these live stream reviews and segments. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and definitely leave a comment down below, please. Tell me what you think. Did you like the changes that happened in a new translation? Did you prefer the new translation over the original? What's your thoughts on it? Tell me. I'm curious what you guys gotta say too. Other than that too, if you want to keep abreast about when I'm going to go live, you can also follow me on my Twitter account. On my Twitter account, it's when I post when I go live or what my schedules are like right now. So definitely check me out on all those platforms and make sure to follow me there on each and every one of them, okay? I do want to thank you guys for watching. And until the next live stream review or, what's the Gundam difference, I'll see you guys next time. Take care. And with that said, oh, I keep forgetting to do this. Hey, hon.
Hey, babe. Are you still alive?
Yeah, I'm still alive.
Oh, okay.
Well, don't worry. I'm ending it here.
You're wrapping it up?
I'm wrapping it up, love.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. You should come by and say hi to the stream sometimes.
Hello.
Not much of a streamer. It's okay. Anyways, I do want to thank you guys for watching here, sticking around. I could have fixed that little ending, but I'm not gonna rerun myself again. But yeah, in all honest, it's the same way I've said it before too. Though, like, I do thank you guys for watching, sticking around. Please check out my live streams in the future. Join in. I love responding to people live as much as I love responding to people on YouTube comments too. Keep it nice, keep it fresh. Don't need to be mean about things or whatnot. Yeah, but that said, we are now done with a new translation. I actually have started up on the abhorrent, I was guessing, ZZ Gundam. No spoilers here. It is going exactly how I remember it to be, and it's not too far off of a memory, so that's not going to be too much of a spoiler with the reviews coming up. But, yeah, I'm going through this right now. Hopefully we can finish off ZZ Gundam. And then, if everything's going well with that, I can start moving on to the next set. I actually didn't pull it out from my Gundam box. Quite literally, it's a Gundam box. But I'm pretty sure, I think the next series / movies that I'm going to be watching should be Char's Counterattack and F91. I could be wrong, but this is what I'm going based off of memory. But anyways, make sure to tune in next time. I live stream 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Today I did do it later. We started at 1:10. That's okay. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit more abreast of that. But then again, the only thing I can say is I stood up really, really late doing that. What's the Gundam difference? Finishing that off. Getting you guys all that nice information compiled in there. And also, well, was it just getting everything kind of prepared, having errands as well too. So hopefully next week it's gonna be a little bit more condensed down and more tightened down. But yeah, I do want to thank you guys for watching, and until the next live stream, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.